Hello, Changemaker.
Welcome to the Innovation Room,
A place for business leaders,
change agents, and change champions.
anyone who wants to know where digital transformation is taking us,
A place that sparks ideas.
and explores what's really possible with software and technology.
Ready?
Let's see what's happening.
Welcome back to our Future with AI series, where we dive into the transformative world of AI and its impact on industries. In this episode, we turn our focus on the future of travel and hospitality with AI, a fascinating intersection where cutting-edge technology not only elevates luxury, but also democratizes it, making extraordinary experiences more accessible than ever. On the other hand, the impact of technology over the years has created an unprecedented customer experiences and demands that has taken a toll on the industry and the passionate people who work in it. So today we discuss what the potential impact of AI in the sector will be, both the promising prospects and the challenges to anticipate. My guest today is a powerhouse behind the success of eight&four, a global social and content production agency. As the co-founder and managing director of eight&four, Kate brings a brilliant fusion of creativity and strategy to the world of luxury brands, such as sandals, Melia, and Watches of Switzerland. Her deep-rooted passion for hospitality, nurtured by a family legacy in the industry, adds a personal touch to her professional expertise. I am Somayeh, CEO of Geeks. Please join Kate, Russ, and I in the Innovation Room as we are set to explore how changemakers can leverage AI not to just keep pace, but lead in this exciting era. Hi, very welcome to the Innovation Room.
Thank you.
Shall we start with a quick introduction from you and what you do, your experience? You have a very exciting business, exciting role, especially these days. It's very exciting time.
Yeah, it's good fun, isn't it, to work in a digital technology, isn't it? It keeps you fresh, keeps you young, and absolutely, it appears you always appear to be where the news is, which I enjoy. So hi, I'm Kate Ross. I'm co-founder of eight&four. I run that with my business partner, Amy McCulloch. eight&four's been going 15 years now, and we started it back when we were only 24 years old, and we were on a grad scheme in publishing, and that's where we met. And we're a couple of years into our careers and the recession hit, and we'd already been talking about it. We thought, you know what? We seem to get digital marketing a lot better than a lot of our older peers do. So how about we go and try and do our own thing? So we did. At 24, we left our big publishing overlords and we set up on our own 15 years ago. And we, right back then, we were looking at, building basic HTML websites, the advent of social media marketing for businesses, really interesting. We've now been on a fantastic journey of 15 years, which changes continuously. Every year, our service offering, it evolves alongside the extraordinary digital transformation going on across the globe. We primarily now, from a digital perspective, we focus in the social arena, social advertising, creative advertising, online. That's where we specialize. And we have been very big advocates of the way in which AI will influence marketing for our clients. So we've been doing a lot of work around that, everything from sort of business as usual, efficiencies using AI technology, whether that be in Adobe Firefly, for example, right through to developing some of our own AI products, specifically targeted at some of the pain points our clients are experiencing. And with those, what we're attempting to do is explore not just how AI can help our customers market faster, maybe more cost effectively, but actually how can AI allow them to do something that has not been possible until AI and artificial intelligence has developed to the point it has now and is so accessible to so many of us.
That's the most exciting part.
Well, highly technical. It's been a fantastic journey, and it's lovely to be here today.
So, okay, who would you bring into the Innovation Room, dead or alive, fiction or real? And if you really want to, you can have more than one person.
I've thought a lot about this one, actually. It's so hard, isn't it? I mean, there's so many people I'd love to talk to. I decided in the end to go with, I'm a Bristolian, so I decided to go with Isambard Brunel, who's dead, sadly, so you can't invite him. But he was obviously one of the principals.
You never know, I might be able to invite like AI version of it.
Yeah, indeed, yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I think with those sort of like architects of previous sort of industrial revolutions, and obviously one of the greatest engineers of his generation. I would love to understand what that brain would make of all this. I often think that, like, what would, if you could grab someone from 2,000 years ago and pop them here, what would they make of all this? It'd be fascinating. And what would feel, they'd be like, oh my God, what would be like, this is just, it's different, but I recognize a lot of it. A lot of the human concerns and issues and opportunities, they resonate versus the things they'd be like, oh my God. So yeah, I'd love that. I'd love to get his take on all this, and his engineering brain.
Cool, wonderful. We should do a podcast on future of marketing with AI. But today, because where we met, we were specifically talking about hospitality, and you have worked with some brilliant brands in hospitality, and I said, oh, it would be wonderful to look at what you're seeing from a brand point of view, from expectation, and from your experience you have, how hospitality's future could look like with AI and the impact it has. So tell us a little bit about explain a little bit about your work within the hospitality sector, your understanding of the hospitality, how it has evolved maybe in the past, like especially like it went through a massive transformation and disruption during the pandemic, and just tell us a little bit about like the foundation.
Yeah, of course.
And we build up on that.
Of course, yeah. So we've been, funny enough, actually, our first ever client was a travel brand. It was a travel operator, and we built them a one-page website for £140 back in 2008, and we got cash in envelopes. So travel and hospitality has been very close to our hearts right from the beginning. Within sort of 2, 3, 4 years, we were doing a lot of social training with PR agencies, and obviously PR firms are extraordinarily important with the travel and hospitality space. So we were networking with PR firms, doing social media training, and then we started getting introduced to their clients. So one of our early largest travel clients was Melly Hotels International, global hotel brand. We've then since gone on across that travel and hospitality space, which is very interconnected. So we've worked with Wyndham, Days Inn, multiple hotel brands, Sandals, Beaches, and then we've worked with a lot of hospitality, so connected to F&B, so lots of restaurant chains, alcohol brands, etc. So really across that hospitality experience. And yeah, it's been an amazing journey. We love working with travel and hospitality brands. You find extraordinarily bright people within these brands, and you talked earlier on actually about the importance of the human. Irregardless of what technical innovation happens, travel and hospitality, the bedrock of it is humans. It is literally people wanting to connect, to be social. It is to explore, to meet other human beings. You'll see companies like Airbnb, their entire marketing, brand positioning is built on connecting with locals. It's such a human focused industry. So it's been fascinating to working in that. It was absolutely, COVID was, and the pandemic was extraordinarily challenging. We, in a week, lost about 60% of paused the work from 60% of our clients. So we were very exposed within that moment. But we got our heads down. We worked really, really closely with our clients. We came through it, and I'm pleased to say, retained all those clients, and are back now to sort of, to full force. Plus the additional, we went and picked up a lot of clients within the tech sector as well, because that was sort of thriving, albeit within COVID. Which brings us.
Sorry, go on.
So that brings us up to today, and say, a large part of our client base is around the travel and hospitality space.
Yeah. It's a really interesting sector, because for the history of the sector goes back to thousands of years. It's like people have traveled for thousands of years. So that's one of the very interesting sectors that has stood the.
We're coming up to Christmas, and literally the entire story is about like the stable, like looking for an inn. I know this is literally travel and hospitality, millennia ago. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking about like when I was a kid, we used to watch a kids program, which was about Marco Polo and like his travels to the east and all of that. And it's all about like different cultures, experiencing different experiences, people, food, music, whatever. So it's very, very interesting when we started chatting about how will that change with a technology as disruptive and as big as AI. And today we want to explore that a bit. And I want us to go through through the dare or die bullseye framework that we have when we start with what's how the expectation of the people, all people involved in the sector, is changing with AI. What are the constraints that a sector, as a whole sector, or as businesses within, would they have? And then what's the offering of the sector? What would the business within the hospitality could look like in the future? And then the core question, which we always go back to, is what's the role of human in that sector? Is there a role for a human in that sector moving forward? And that's where we believe businesses can, if they go through this process, they can find the core of what their vision, they can test their vision for the future and for the AI. So if we start with that, what do you think, how people's expectations, and that, I mean, by that, I mean the people who are customers, the people who are employees in that sector, the people who are partners within that sector, the shareholders, everybody, like the supply chain, how their expectations, you think, is being impacted by AI and the advancements they experience in other sectors and in life generally, because it has become like a more general disruption than a specific.
Yeah, no, sure. I think that I often find it's interesting to look back, like how has technology shifted, as you say, this ancient industry in the past, and we've spoken about this before, but you know, if you look to the 20th century and how technology completely transformed the travel and hospitality sector, and it was through democratization of it by virtue of advancements within transport technology. So if we just go back to the 1970s, do you know what I mean? Cheap flights and the sort of the extraordinary impact that has on not only the resorts that UK, let's take UK specifically for now, start visiting, but also the absolute decimation of local tourist spots within the UK, and you see seaside towns. Do you know what I mean? Like the change is unbelievable. So it's a huge impact, technology, doesn't it? And the impact travel hospitality has. So I think when you look at that, you know, if we go back, 200, 300 years, maybe not even that much, travel would have been something that 1%, I don't want to know the stats, but it'd been a tiny amount. It's the aristocrats, do you know what I mean, traveling around.
Absolutely.
Your average person. My great grandmother never left the UK, which is crazy to think about, isn't it? Because it's like,
absolutely.
My grandmother.
So did my I think my grandmother.
Australia. Do you know what I mean? She went to Canada. She did, and then my parents, they've just come back from Japan, and at 16 years old, I was visiting India. Do you know what I mean? So the differences in those generations, just unbelievable, and how much. And we know, obviously, transport technology improvements have transformed the world completely. I mean, it's the bedrock of why we're globalized. But so yes, when I look back at that, I then think, okay, well, that's what technology fundamentally did. That was the most important technology advancement for travel and hospitality in the last couple of 100 years. So then if we look, as you say, to AI, it's like, well, what will it democratize next? Because that's what technology does, doesn't it? It democratizes broadly. And I think that the thing it will democratize will be the ability, because if you think about travel and hospitality, and we work a lot in the luxury space within travel and hospitality, the ability to maybe enhance luxury experiences or the feeling of luxury experiences by virtue of technology and new technology advancements, that could be something that's really interesting. So if you think about like a principal role within the travel and hospitality industry for probably millennia, the concierge, this idea of someone who helps tailor your journey, who helps you understand, if I've just flown into Lisbon, for example, where can I go and eat? Now, at the moment, that's quite self-service to me because I'm Googling, do you know what I mean? Look around all the usual tools you use. I mean, because God, the internet had such a huge impact on travel hospitality too, not even to take that wave of change. But there's something there that from a travel brand perspective, as a hotel brand perspective, the ability to give very personalized information, like concierge-like experiences to people, that will democratize that, because concierges are generally associated with very luxury brands and often can be quite an expensive service. So maybe
because it's hard to create such an individual experience for different people. Absolutely. When people are very, very different. So am I correct if I want to summarize what you said? Am I correct to say travel industry or hospitality went through from being an elite, exclusive experience or experience to be available to people. It went to becoming more accessible. More people could do some sort of travel. Then it became a bit like, let's tailor a bit. So we went through like creating with digital technology. We saw the emerging of packages. You could do a package. So it became a bit tailored, but it's still generic tailored experience. So if you wanted to do a sporting experience, there was a package, and if you wanted to do like a food experience, there was a package, or that kind of thing. And with the AI being the generic kind of characteristic of what AI brings is hyper personalization. So like, can it take it to the whole level of you get a very personalized experience, which is the concierge experience you're talking about, a very tailored experience to whatever you like, whatever kind of person you are, and whatever mood you're in, or whatever expectation you have, then that becomes your very tailored, which we know has benefits and, the good things and the bad things. So from my point of view, it's brilliant. I get to really fully experience, say, Portugal, fully into what I like, which is a bit of music, a bit of sport. I want to watch a football match, and I want to do this, that, like, and that becomes my package, without being super expensive, being done by a human concierge who spends like a lot of time talking to me, getting to know me, knowing what I like and what I don't like. But that's a very wonderful upside to it. But the downside is, what am I going to miss from accidental, experiences I might have had, which I'm not sure. I think one part of me says, well, if I am open enough to let the AI to include a bit of like the things that I haven't said I like, or I haven't shown experience, the signs that I like, and let it bring those as stuff, even that could be a whole different experience of like creating accidental experience. Is that what you see happening, and what do you see that's negative?
As you say, it's where it meets human and where it becomes, because I was thinking when you're speaking, concierge, it's also the travel agent, isn't it? And the travel agent obviously was someone who helped you organize your holiday, and they'd say, what do you like? What do you want to do? And by virtue of the sort of the absolute race to the bottom in terms of cost within travel and hospitality, the travel agents have just got squeezed out of the market because it's too expensive. So yeah, absolutely. How could technology create that personalization, create that sort of supportive function? Because I find it very difficult. Like, I'm busy, do you know what I mean? And I'm going to book a holiday and I scrabble around. Like, for example, we're going to a wedding next summer in France, taking our family. And I'm like, oh God, I need to book somewhere. So then I just go on Airbnb and I found a villa, and then it's like, okay, it's done. And it's like, oh my God, there's so much more. And I booked some EasyJet flights. And it's like, there's so much more that could be done there to really sort of wrap my experience. And so it's interesting to see how brands will do that. You see some of the luxury brands doing that very, very well. Like, even I went to, a few years ago, I took my mum to a fantastic B&B in the Cotswolds, and they emailed us before, and they said, please talk to us about what your likes are. What do you like? What sort of wine do you like? You know what I mean? So they made sure the minibar was stocked appropriately. They're like, when you arrive, do you want afternoon tea, or do you want like sandwiches? Like, are you sweet, savory? All these little things. And it was like, God, having it customized like that was amazing. But obviously that's quite a lot of work, virtue of, or the human within that.
And I think if for people who are happy to share some of their personal information, then, because for me the painful part is sitting down and talking to someone about it, be it AI or a human. I just can't be bothered to tell somebody what I like, what I don't like. Like, you know what? I am more than happy to send them my Spotify, so they give them access. So look at what kind of music I like here. Give them look at what movies I like. Give them my Netflix. Like, look at what kind of movies I watch, or look at my I don't know, food restaurants I have been to, kind of food I like, or what kind of human am I. and then you figure out what kind of experience would be suitable for me in the place that I'm going to go. And we touched on last time we were talking, we touched on, like, I love jazz, and would it be wonderful to walk into a hotel in Portugal? I bring Portugal as an example because I was there last week, and I was like, wouldn't it be wonderful if I walk in my hotel room, there was a background Portuguese jazz music being played, or, like, as you said, like my favorite wine being in the fridge, or, like, that would be so amazing. But this is something without AI, it's going to be very, very expensive to create that. Even in many, many cases, not possible, because it's all about the amount of data to process, the amount of choices to select, and make it cost effective, which is, the recipe for AI to get involved.
I was reading last night an article about Zoom Pizza, Silicon Valley. What Silicon Valley's like biggest sort of embarrassments, and Zoom Pizza was all about, we're going to revolutionize pizza making by doing it via robots, and we'd bake it on the way to delivering it, so you'd get your pizza with like 15-20 minutes. Like, fantastic ideas. And do you know what I mean? Like people, no one involved will talk to any journalists because they're all a bit embarrassed about it. But I was really going, well, great. They're really interesting ideas here. The idea of like baking, and do you know what I mean? They foresaw the sort of the transformation in food delivery, which has occurred in the last 5 years, Anyway, but it didn't work because it was very expensive to have robots making pizzas, and the robots kept breaking, and then they'd go up a hill and the pizza, the cheese would slip off the pizza. And it's like, you're reading all this stuff, and it's really difficult, isn't it, with technology, because there feels like every single day there's so many missed opportunities with technology, and yet at the same time it can be very difficult to navigate, as you say, that sweet spot, which is technology is going to make this better, and it's going to do so in a straightforward way that isn't going to irritate the customer, that isn't going to cause sort of privacy issues, and that is actually going to be cost effective, and has an ability to last. I mean, how many times have we seen technology, be released, and the fridges that were going to tell you what food you had left, and just didn't happen. I remember that was going to be the future of food technology 5 years ago. It's
I think being a technologist, I think there are two different ways of approaching, or there has been two different ways we are approaching technology application. Some of it we go to like really futuristic. Let's solve a problem that is not a problem really. Nobody has that as a problem, and they try to solve that problem. And yes, because it's a bit too futuristic, then we don't have really tested technology to solve it properly. Or it needs a lot of education for people to learn how to change their behavior to adopt that technology. But there is like a more step. I'm more favor of, let's do like incremental, what we call digital evolution. Like, let's just find what's the next step of a business. What could it look like? Let's not go all crazy and think about like everything is going to be super customized. But what is the next thing, or the next 5 small things that could be really easily customized, that would change the experience of the travelers, and it's not just the travelers, it's like the staff, the shareholders, and like, if I was owning a hospitality business, I would be like, how technology can prevent the kind of disruption that COVID brought to the sector. Like, I don't want to see that kind of disruption. What can we use technology to do that?
Yeah. I think it's really, like, where do you start with it, and like where we're starting with it in terms of looking at where AI can actually offer something new, beneficial, is one way you need to start with is where are all the signals there? Where is all the data there already? We don't have to go out and find it or ask the customer, like to your point. It's like, what's accessible? So the big thing for us is social. People are talking about the brands every day on social, right? We have all of this data. Now, that data can be really, as you'll know this as a data person, the issue with data is you get too much of it and everyone becomes overwhelmed by it and gets stuck in decision making because it's very difficult to move through. It becomes sluggish. What AI has been fantastic in for us is we're looking at customer service signals on social, and we're being able to much more quickly now build patterns and see patterns within customer service issues. So as a travel brand, actually, are we listening on a daily basis, and not in some of the more manual way, with a Sprout Social or Sprinkler equivalent sort of like community management tool where you're picking up all the queries fine and someone's going through and they're talking and responding to clients, but actually zooming out and seeing what are the big trends here and the issues, and is that then feeding how we're innovating and improving our brand each time? And that can be both on the negative, as in these.
Also, there is like as you say, like the reviews.
So then, how do we elevate them even further?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the reviews is like what public data is available that can be used. Like the reviews in all the brands. It's not like the brands you're working. Like all their competitors, there are like public reviews on them. What the customers are talking about. Not even my customer. What the whole sector.
Your competitors' brands. Do you know what I mean? And then how figuring that. And AI is definitely has a huge role to play there, because it is helping us sift through and see patterns in a way that would be very difficult or could be done. But as I said, people would become overwhelmed by the level of data. And AI is enabled to sort of like simplify it, summarize it, and that has been a huge beneficiary.
I think also another aspect of expectation, which would benefit the sector massively, is the expectation that the customer comes from the customers, that customization, that I want to see the stuff that I like to see, I want to do activities that I like to do. But also the biggest challenge these resorts and hospitality businesses have is, how do we make it cost effective to create different options for different people? Whereas using AI, they would be able to predict, like let's say we have all the bookings for like January, February, what kind of people are coming up, and can we create the kind, like if majority of people on a second week of January are loving, I keep saying jazz, are loving jazz, let's put a jazz musician, let's book a jazz musician for that week, and then changing it to a classical musician, and then changing it to something else. The same with different experiences they can provide, the same with like the kind of food they're providing. Like that's how they can, they don't have to go one person, customization. They could look at what's the majority of people are going to want. Let's make sure we give them that. And that's where it becomes a lot more like manageable and all of that. And we know like what AI can do in supply chain optimization and efficiency and things like that. Let's move on to the constraints. Like you have worked in the hospitality sector for a long time, you know it. What are the constraints for the sector in using AI, or in the world of the future with AI? What are the constraints? Are there different regulations that they have to deal with in different continents, countries, regions? I'm sure there are cultural differences, like the same brand can't provide the same experiences in different.
Sure. I think if when you ask me, what are the constraints around AI, I think it goes back to that very original point, which is about the importance of the human within travel. You think about Moonpig and all those car companies, and I remember the great fanfare, the great excitement I had with personalization sort of storm, and not on the high street Moonpig, and it was probably 6-7 years ago now. And so I had about 2 Christmases where all my family got personalized things, and everyone just thought it was so fun. I have not done it since, because now it just feels tacky, and it's just like, I don't need this stuff with my name on. This is so weird. It's all we've culturally we're much more of a like, oh, less stuff, stop producing stuff, waste, plastic. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like really pull back. And I think now, if I would send a Moonpig card, and if I'd written in it, and it's like printed out, there's something like abhorrent about it, isn't there? As opposed to me the time to write with my own hand. That's actually a really lovely, that's a treasured thing nowadays, isn't it?
It's so true what you say. I received a written hand card a couple of weeks ago from one of our clients, thanking us, like to me on a card with his, and I was just over them. I was like, oh my God, he took the time to write to me. This is so precious. So I just called him and I was like, you have no idea what you've done. And he was like, I was so afraid, you're techie. Like, I was like, is she going to be offended that I just sent her? Like, is it like too old fashioned? I was that was perfect. That was so good.
Exactly. And so it's sort of, that's the constraint really you have, because you can have very, very clever technology, which, as you say, might get things right. But if it's not delivered by a human, or we somehow lose the human touch within it, it can become quite sterile. And within a travel and hospitality environment, certainly my best experiences, absolutely, like if I'm going to take hotels as an example, absolutely, you know, fabulous features, you know, the cleanliness of the room that I've entered, the smell being fantastic with a beautiful candle, the view, they do all matter. Those things will really, really stop mattering if I have a very, very poor human interaction experience. So if I arrive at the hotel and people are rude, they make checking in difficult, like that, the impact that has is really, really significant. And that's not AI. That's literally having well-trained staff. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing you have to have well-trained staff who are passionate. And we know we run businesses. Culture of your employees is so imperative, because if you have a strong, positive culture, that when they then interface with the world and represent your brand, they will do so in the way in which they're treated. So, you know,
this is a very interesting constraint, because I think that would change the business models. Because at the moment, hospitality hires people that the majority of them is not that they really want to be in hospitality. It's like they don't have any other like choice, or it's like it's the easy thing to get into because there are not many. But imagine, like we have automated and we have used AI in and other technologies to make the low level part of it away, take that away from the human. Then you hire the people who are extremely passionate to be a hospitality person, to create that kind of experience. So their job wouldn't be to check you in. It would be to be there, to be that experience while you're using the check-in whatever machine or whatever that you need to use, which I don't understand why you need to do that anywhere. Like you have all the information, scan my face and let me in. Like what is all the fuss about copying my passport? And you can have all of that, you know, in a lot seamless experience.
One thing I just picked, because I think travel hospitality, you have extraordinarily skilled people who are very, very passionate, and I work with a lot of people who work in travel hospitality who love the sector. My family, actually, my mother's side, are all from travel hospitality, so I was brought up in my family itself own hotels, and do you know what I mean? I've been around this all my life, and people are very, very passionate about it. The difficulty a lot of travel hospitality people have had is the price pressure that consumers expect. And the expectations of consumers within travel and hospitality is absolutely mad sometimes versus how much they're paying. I'm stunned by it. Like, I'll hear people complaining about an all-in-one holiday, 7 days to Turkey for 300 quid, including flights, and then complaining about the food. And you're like, you're paying £300 for flights. Like, you can't even fathom that this, to go back to our earlier point, history. 100 years ago, do you know what I mean? That would have been literally £100,000. Like, it's unbelievable, that democratization of it, and people's expectations of it are far too high. So I think you have a lot of people in travel hospitality who feel very burnt out by virtue of those expectations. And I don't know, I don't know where those extraordinary expectations have come from and why people expect so much. I don't know, but anyway.
Well, that's very interesting, because that's what we developed this framework, because the expectation layer is not necessarily the expectation that people develop with the different experiences they have within the sector. It comes from other sectors' experiences people have. So once you get so much service so cheap from Amazon, so think about, we don't pay anything for delivery for Amazon. Like, crazy. Like, it's absolutely madness. And I know Amazon is making loss on that, but they're making up for something else. Like, that's not something that they would make money on.
It's isn't it? The idea that you pay like literally nothing, £1 for someone to deliver food to your house. Like, it's utterly, as we know, it's financially completely unsustainable. Deliveroo is a loss-making company. This is where it gets crazy, because modern day era, there's no. But maybe, as you say, that's a good point. It's like, the expectations from other sectors are so ridiculous, and they've just created completely unsustainable models, because people then go to a hotel, and if you give them an automatic check-in, they're pissed off. And you're like,
yes,
but I have to pay.
How do you think?
Like, how I can't, this is actually, like, we talked about disruption and technology to travel and hospitality. Travel and hospitality industry completely transformed in the 20s, 30s as minimum wage started coming in, because basically travel and hospitality experiences were broadly built on serfdom, people being paid absolute pittance. The reason that you have, as you'll know, 100 years ago, those extraordinary dining trains, do you know what I mean? And you'd be like, there's like a whole brass band playing whilst you're eating off silver, silver service, whatever. That's because everyone is literally barely surviving on their wages, and you've got all the money, and it's whatever. You start bringing minimum wages, it's just literally not functional, which is why now even if you go on Great Western Railway nowadays on first class, like you're lucky to get a cup of tea. Do you know what I mean? Because it's literally the costs aren't there, which is great because actually it's brilliant that I'm pleased we have minimum wages as a company. I'm pleased that people aren't having to, barely survive, working for these companies. But yeah, the expectations are so out of kilter. It's a very, I think it's a very, very difficult. I think customer expectation is very, very difficult in the travel hospitality.
So I think that's if we go to the offering part of the framework, I think that's where different businesses need to start really deciding what is it that they offer, because you either want to be creating a very bespoke, very like using a lot of technology, and that would be fantastic. You can bring the cost down and all of that, and you can create like chains in everywhere in the world, creating the same kind of experiences, and even respecting different cultures and everything. Because you're using AI, you can do that. But also I see a very specific place, and it's not a small place, but a very specific place that a business chooses completely not to use AI, completely go like 100 years ago kind of experience, 200 years ago experience. And I see that being a very valid business model. But then they charge a hell out of people because you're getting a human experience. And I think that's what you see in the sector, that businesses need to decide, where do they want to sit? Do they want to get, it becomes like, when we started using in the industrial revolution, we started like making clothes being, mass produced, and the price came down. Different problems. We started overbuying, overusing, and wasting all of that. But then now, if you really want a bespoke piece of clothes to be made for you by hand, you have to pay a lot of money.
And you're stunned how much money it costs, aren't you? You're like, because it's like, because put the human back in. What did you expect? I know we have completely normalized the cheapness of goods and services. We have normalized, haven't we? And it's shocking when you then put the human back and you actually start costing out. Because this is the thing, isn't it? People quite rightly looking at supply chains for a lot of the major clothing stores in the UK, and it, indirectly going back to exploitation of poor people globally. And so then you have companies come in the UK who are like, okay, we're going to make it all in the UK and we're going to pay fairly. And then people are like, how much is a jumper? Like, they can't believe it, because a jumper is going to be 150 quid. Do you know what I mean? And it's not, and that's just not what people don't know. But I can buy it for a tenner in Primark, and and it's this is what's very difficult, I think, with a lot of which I personally find very challenging. There's an enormous amount of noise and about sustainability, about equality, about better living standards, and then people don't live it. Like, they don't live it. They then go and buy from Deliveroo and create a load of plastic and takeaway. They then go and buy from Primark and support.
I think it's a problem with anything. It's a problem with anything that becomes a fashionable word or concept. Like at the moment, sustainability has become a bit of a fashion. Everybody talks about it, but then the way they live is very different. And it's like, even I have the problem with, that's a tangent, but I have a problem with electric cars, because everybody thinks if they buy an electric car, they're being good to the environment. I'm like, no, you're not. Like, do you realize how much damage to the environment that, like, you keep your old car servicing good, like you use public transport whenever you can, you're a better human to the planet than going and buying an electric car. It's not the
mineral mining in Africa and the extraordinary, the horrifying conditions that children be made to work in to make the batteries to make our electric cars. Exactly. It's like, I'm not saying it's easy. There's no right answer, but yeah, we're served up. Oh, here's the answer. And then you'll be like, I saw yesterday that I hadn't realized, but since June 2022 in the UK, every single new home has to have an electric charging point. Can you imagine the investment going into that and the cost of all that? And we actually don't know whether electric cars are going to work longer term in terms of, because of mineral scarcity. Mineral scarcity then makes us reliant on regimes that maybe we don't want to be reliant on, like China or something. Do you know what I mean? So, oh God, I know that's a whole other story of
that's a big tangent. Let's go back to the hospitality.
Big problems don't exist, and it's irritating when people think they are simple. I find it irritating. It's not simple. really
Yeah,
big.
absolutely. So thinking about offering, like what kind of businesses, but I think there's a bigger spectrum. People like hospitalities of the future. They could be very, very 100% human. You get everything done by humans. I think there will be a place for that because there will be demand, but they're going to be very expensive, very um, too little of them. It's like going to a, I don't know, Michelin star restaurant. Like it's not many of them, and you know if you go there, you're going to pay a lot of money for the food that you might walk out and say like it wasn't like that different, but it's because of like it's not enough. Like it's not too many of them there all the way to I could see a complete, all the functions, all the operations of a hospitality being very heavily technology based and automated. But I still think there will be humans working in there to create those connections and the sense of welcoming and the sense of like, there are your host is a human and then you see them not going running around crazy trying to make sure your room is ready to be checked in. They're just there to welcome you. They're just there to greet you or to ask how your flight was, or because I don't want an AI to ask me how my flight. I was like, you don't care how my
You
flight. Why are you asking? But if a human does, you get that like emotional connection. Oh, you care, like, and then they give you a cup of tea as you arrive, and like that, all those kind of things. That is really nice. That's what makes us human. That's what I think that's that connection, even from a stranger, that care from a stranger, that welcome from a stranger, which we all crave to
We all crave
experience.
because we're also lonely because we've destroyed all communities, haven't we? I mean, the church
Yeah,
has
absolutely.
gone. Do you know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
no one knows their neighbours. Like
Yeah,
we laugh to people. No wonder there's so many mental health problems. It's because everyone's so
yeah,
isolated, sitting on scrolling their phone at home alone. Do you know what I mean? So absolutely, we
yeah,
now become desperate for the touch of strangers. Do you know what I mean? Because we're so
yeah,
sort of
yeah,
yearning for human
yeah.
connection.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think if you go to the core of the dare or die bullseye, I think if hospitality businesses get that bit right, that regardless of their offering, the role of human in the sector is to create connection. Is not even to create experience because the AI can create better experience than the human can create. It's the connection, the sense of love, the sense of welcoming. That's the role of human in the hospitality. That is smile that you want to see from them, that like chit chat, that a little joke, that that being representation of the culture you're going into. That's what you like. So if they focus on that how can we free up our humans and train them to be able to do that, they will get it right, and then they can grow. Do you agree, disagree? Anything to add
Yeah,
to
I
that?
agree. I think the fundamental problems in absolutely, I agree. What can the human do versus what can I do? Absolutely, because as you say, that frees up humans to do what humans should be doing. Um, I think that yeah, probably the most significant space I see for travel and hospitality with AI, as I said, is the extraordinary amount of data customers are giving off, whether it be review sites, on social, across the board. How do they better look at that data to improve their travel and hospitality offering? So that is like that's an enormous one. And then concurrently, how do you improve? And these are for large scale brands. The smaller hotels are able to manage the traffic of incoming customer inquiries, etc. But for the really, really big ones, how do you improve customer service? And again, that is, I mean, we've talked about this. This has fallen by the absolute wayside. Like so, like EasyJet, they changed my flight times. I can't talk to anyone about it. Literally, there's nothing. They just shove me in a chatbot, and that doesn't answer my question. So, how do they use that? How do they use AI to better improve that customer experience? If they want to keep costs low of flights, which I understand, so they're trying to reduce staff. Like, but how do I still talk to them? And we talked about the problem is that they've cornered the market, these airlines, and so what?
Yeah.
What
But
do you
I,
do?
but I think that part, I think the AI is better than human. You want to talk to a human because the chatbot isn't intelligent enough. It's not solving it doesn't even understand what your problem is. It keeps repeating the same bloody
You
questions.
mean this?
That
No,
is,
I don't. You mean this?
yeah.
No, I don't.
But
Yeah.
but at the same time, the problem is, I think, is not fair to put humans to deal with customer complaint. because I always feel really bad whenever I want to complain to any airline, anything. Like, I feel bad for the human that needs to take the complaint, and I'm like, for them, this is their life every day, like dealing with unhappy people. That makes you very very frustrated. It's not a happy job to be like dealing with unhappy so that part, I think, let AI deal with that, but use it properly so it can actually solve. Even if you don't have the the flight time that suits me, an AI could be a lot more patient and a lot less irritating, deal with me based on my frustration level or my culture or my the language I use. If you have a customer that is rude, a human doesn't deserve to be subject to that. AI could be subject to that and deal with it and calm the person down and give them some option and try to get them, give them some options. But it's the AI is not those chatbots that are being used. Those chatbots are rule based and they have 5 things they can do that. They're trying to shoehorn you to those 5 things, and you're like, this is not my problem. Like, get me a human so I can explain what my problem is. Yeah. Well, wonderful. It's a very, very interesting piece, because from all the sectors I've been talking to sector leaders on the future of their sector with AI, I think this was the most human one so far. That is like, it's all about the human interaction when we go traveling. It's all about the experience, and how can we use AI to make sure we amplify that experience that is being missed because expectation has gone high, and then the cost is not sustainable. So you cannot create that experience without sacrificing your staff, your employees, the health of the business, and all of that. So everybody is not getting a better experience. So I think that's a very interesting area. Any parting words, Kate? Any advice for the hospitality brands, and how they might need to look at their brand and the future? And
I think I've said it a couple of times. I think this is such an extraordinary moment to be able to better understand your customer at a scale that you've never been able to before, and for it to these as I say, these data signals, that they've been around for a long time now, but they have been very, very difficult to aggregate, to summarize, to trend spot in. And AI enables an extraordinary opportunity for you to better understand how your brand is perceived than ever before, and to therefore then improve your product, improve your your brand, and move forward, and better care with customers, and, as you say, deliver that enhanced service. So yeah,
wonderful, lovely to have talked to you, and I'm sure we will talk again. Maybe the future of marketing would be
absolutely. I'd look forward to it
next.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us in the Innovation Room.
We hope it sparks some ideas.
Want to learn more about what we do?
Maybe you could even be our next guest.
And spark some ideas yourself.
Find us at Geeks Limited.
And join us again soon.
Because real change never stops.